Flying is one of the greatest things you can do, whether it's in combat or commercial or private. I flew 68 combat missions. I got shot at every European capital except London and Paris. So that's not a pleasant experience. On the other hand, you know you're defending your country. You know as you're defending your country, you're also projecting your race. So it was a combination of pride and a feeling of accomplishment. The Tuskegee Airman showed that African Americans as a group could achieve great things. There had been individual blacks like Jesse Owens in the Olympics and Joe Louis in boxing, but those are individual exploits. Here we have a group exploit. It really was an example of what African Americans could do in an area where they'd been previously excluded. My experience in politics is fairly long-standing. My daughter and I were at the March on Washington in 1963. I was a delegate for Jesse Jackson in 1984. I was a delegate for Jesse Jackson in 1988. I thought that we would have a black vice president before we'd have a black president. So I knew the winds of change were about us. Because I was active in New York State Democratic politics, I supported Senator Hillary Clinton as the candidate. And then when she finally conceded, I became a very strong supporter of Barack Obama. We had a phenomenal candidate in Barack Obama, a very skilled person, and a time when the nation wanted competence over ideology. And that's the reason why we have an African-American president. Hope is in the air. It's almost like the Great Society of Lyndon Johnson, the new frontier of the Kennedy administration. But it takes a lot of work. Ideas are great, hope is great, but finally, the test is what you're able to do through the Congress, what you're able to do through the economy. The greatest fear for Obama is the fact that his expectations are so high he might not be able to meet all of them. And it's pretty clear that he won't be able to meet all of them. He's going to try to meet most of them. He has great groundswell of support, even of people who didn't vote for him. So now he has to be the master, the coach of his team. He has to keep his team together, he has to keep them on the road. And that's going to be difficult because there are decisions he's going to make that not everyone will agree with. Actually, leadership now is probably more difficult than it was when I was a young man. We knew we had a defined objective. We had to beat racism, we had to beat segregation. Now there's so many objectives that you have to deal with. You have to deal with the economy, you have to deal with international affairs, you have to deal with the environment. And the expectations are much higher. The time when I was doing my leadership work and so on, the expectations were there, but everybody knew you had barriers and you could only do so much. We pushed those barriers. We went long past them, and that made it possible for young people like Barack Obama to get into Harvard and get that kind of education. Now the challenge is much more on the basis of what can you do, what's your ability. You don't necessarily have the excuse of racism. It's there, but you have to show what you can do. My satisfaction was making the change. Obama's satisfaction has to be to accelerate that change in such a way that it brings a mass of people, not just a few.